Are you talking shift? We are. It's time for the We're Talking Shift podcast. Now. Here to talk shift, Loree Bischoff. We're Talking Shift.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to We're Talking Shift, the podcast where we talk shift because I believe the antidote to feeling stuck begins in our minds with a shift in our thinking, which is why I really love talking with other people who are also deep thinkers and coaches and therapists, authors, and other people who are just really using their voices and their experiences and their expertise to help people get unstuck and create their version of a sweet life. My mission is really to help you achieve yours. So continuing on with relationship tips. In fact, you know what? I realized I was doodling around some notes the other day, and I've decided I think we're going to call this relationships. It's sometimes that's what we got to do, right? As things are moving and shifting and evolving in our relationships, we need to shift. That's what we're talking shift here. That's the whole idea. So I think we're going to call this segment relationships. And so we're going to go on with tip number 4 today, which is replacing arguing with talking and listening. How's that for some new advice? Not like you've never heard that before, but how? Because sometimes in the heat of the moment, it is really, really difficult. But I'll tell you what, if you can master the art of listening and talking and replace arguing and fighting with that, it's a game changer. It will change your relationship. It'll change your entire world together. So I think we're going to take a dive into that with some do's and don'ts. And as I've been doing lately, I'm going to ask TJ to jump in and join us, and we're going to explore this topic. So come on down, TJ.
Relationships. I like that.
Yeah.
Relationships is let's put that on a t-shirt, I think.
I think so. It's I think it's pretty cool, actually. I was pretty tickled with myself.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I must be the first to ever come up with this, but chances are if I Googled it, there's probably somebody's already.
Don't Google it. Don't Google it.
I can't. I'm not going to go there. I'll lose my steam. Anyway, so how do you guys do? Again, you've been married 9 years. You've been together for even longer than that. Is arguing and fighting something that you've been able to master in your own marriage?
See, here's my problem. I like to argue. I hate fighting, but I like to argue. And to me,
tell me more.
To me, arguing is constructive. If I make a statement and I can, think about this. Think about court. What do you have? You have opening and closing what? Arguments. Right. You don't have opening and closing fights. You have arguments. And there's nothing wrong with making an argument. When that argument, though, turns into a fight, then we've got issues.
Right.
And I can make a very cerebral argument, but I can't make it a very emotional argument. If I make an emotional argument, then it becomes a fight. And I think that, again, it comes down to one being constructive, the other being destructive. And I don't know. I'm up for a good argument. Never a good fight, though.
So, yeah, fighting, totally counterproductive. Once you step into that arena where you've moved from, even if, arguing, you could say even maybe a heated discussion. But once you step into the fighting, that's when, your goal becomes something other than getting your point across. Your goal becomes about winning at all costs.
Right. And that's bad.
And because that means it's going to turn into a power struggle. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose, which really means both people lose.
Well, even when it becomes a fight and the point is winning, now we've basically lost all sort of rationale. You know what I mean? People now just it's a battle in an overall war. And I don't know. That's the vibe that I get from people.
Hmm. Yeah, because if winning is the goal, it's no longer about what was the whole point of the difference of opinion in the first place. What was the thing that we were trying to accomplish, which was not necessarily to win, but maybe, to find, it could be to find a solution to something.
Right.
But now it's just about I win, you lose, and I hate you.
Pretty much. I
Or
mean,
whatever.
that's the thing. No one ever walks away from an argument, I think, really with sad feelings. But almost always I mean, heck, I think both people walk away with maybe upset feelings in a fight, even if you won the overall fight. And by the way, just because someone concedes in a fight doesn't mean you actually won. In fact, maybe they're
Oh, no.
placating you, and it's just going to be carried over to another day.
Yeah, that's a false win.
Yeah.
That's a false win. You've really lost because there's been damage.
Right.
Damage has been done. Scar tissue will form.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very hard it can be very difficult to heal that kind of stuff. It can be, but it's something that has to be really attended to.
Right. And again, going back to my weird fight analogies when it comes to relationships, but scar tissue, it tends to cut very easily and open back up. And when you do damage to something, even if it will heal, it's very easy to open those wounds up again.
Right. Totally. It's a very it's a sensitive issue. So really, this is just another form, an aspect of communication that when you are in relationship with somebody, you guys, it's really important to find out how you're going to communicate when you have a difference of opinions, when an argument erupts. How do you manage that so that everybody is heard and respected, and it doesn't escalate to a fight, which is, what we've just determined is different. I really hadn't even thought that deeply about it, to be honest, TJ. So I'm really glad that you framed it up like that. That's pretty interesting. I would have, just without thinking deeper about it, I would have put arguing and fighting almost in the same category. And maybe a lot of people would, because maybe to them they're one and the same. Maybe every difference of opinion or communicative conflict, it just turns automatically into a fight. I mean, everybody's different.
It does for a lot of people, I believe. But, no one ever says, oh, you'll get complimented for having a good point, or you make a good argument. No one will ever say, you make a good fight.
Mm-hmm. Right.
True.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I think it's fun when you have, it's fun in the sense that, if you can have that argument or share opposing opinions about something, it's good because it's either going to make you feel stronger about your own point of view, or it's going to make you open up and consider that maybe there's another valid point to be made that you hadn't thought of before. And if none of those happens, if nothing else, you establish that you and your partner, it's okay to not agree on something. You're not going to agree on everything. So creating understanding for why your partner has a difference of opinion is really the biggest part, I think, so that you can just go, well, you know what? I get it. I don't agree. It's not for me, but I get you and I respect it. And then, you move on.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. So I think that, a lot of times if we let things escalate too much, one of the most obvious, and we've been hearing this ever since I can remember, is don't go to bed angry. I think that that's really important. If you're having an argument and you haven't been able to come to a point of resolution, or the point where you can say, okay, you know what, I understand, we agree to disagree, and you can, move on from it and everybody's okay. But I think if you haven't reached that point, I think that I really don't think you should go to bed if it's late at night before you find that place of some version of peace.
I agree, because I think you're poisoning the next day, to be honest with you. If I go to bed upset, I'm going to wake up upset.
Yes, exactly. You wake up it's the first thing that's in your mind, chances are, if it's if it's a big deal, you've probably waken up several times throughout the night thinking about it, and you get a bad night's sleep, and then you wake up tired with the same thing on your mind, the same negative energy, instead of a fresh start. So you just sort of almost pick up where you left off, and that's no good, because now you're exhausted on top of it. So try to, if you have this type of a conflict going on, do everything you can to find resolution, or some sort of peace about the issue before you go to bed. The next thing I think is a really good point to make, and this is a huge one with me. I do not think that you should ever, under any circumstances, swear at your partner. I have a huge pet peeve about that. And I don't mean swearing in the context of your conversation. I mean, that's one thing, but I'm talking about, F you,
Yep.
I'm talking about at your partner.
Yep.
At them, calling them names. I think that is an absolute line you should never, ever cross. You should never call, you should never say you're a mother effer. You should never say you're a bitch. You should never, ever go there. I don't think, under any circumstances. I think it is a deal breaker.
100%. And
yeah,
I also draw the line with someone hanging up on me. If you hang up on me, I'm sorry. Like, we shouldn't talk. We just shouldn't talk.
Right.
Because they're both childish antics, in my opinion.
Yeah. They're they make things worse. They just make things worse. And if your goal is to have a mature, harmonious relationship, you don't do things that are going to make it worse, make it devolve, make it less mature. It's so counterproductive. But, in that same category as swearing at your partner, hanging up on them, it's talking down to them, being condescending. I mean, it's just, when you have a total lack of reverence and respect for your partner, I just, no matter how angry or upset, maybe they did something that was really, maybe they just screwed up royally, and they know it. Everybody knows it. They made a big, nasty mess out of something. Even under that circumstance, you could still have your argument, and you can still do what you need to do to work through that. But even then, I think you should never, ever do those things. I don't think that you should ever talk to your partner in a way that, like, you would never talk to your boss or somebody that you greatly revered or had great respect for. A lot of people would never think about talking like that to certain people ever, under any circumstances, yet they'll turn around, and the person that they purport to love, the person that they sleep with, the mother or father of their children, that person, they'll say the most horrific things to.
Right.
I don't get it.
It's something that we were talking about sort of last time we did this relationship segment. There is some unconditional love, and I think that there are times that people sort of take advantage of that, going, oh, you know what, I can talk to them this way, and nothing really bad is going to happen. They're not going to leave me. They're not going to hurt me, harm me, etc. And it's like, well, don't take advantage of that and just be mean. You know what I mean? Like, you have to respect people, and especially the ones that we love the most.
Yeah. It's they may not leave you, and they may still love you, but they may stop liking you.
Oh,
and
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. I think that there are a lot of people that are in love, but at the same time, maybe don't necessarily like their partner.
They don't like them anymore. They want to, but because of certain things like that, the partner, is making it real hard. They're no longer very likable, So on the deepest level, of course, you could still love that person, but then there's that other part that goes, yeah, you know what? I might be thinking about loving them from afar because I no longer like them. I no longer can feel I should be spoken to that way.
That's a really good point. And it kind of goes back to the overall topic here. There is a difference between arguing in fighting, and it may not seem that way at the surface, but there's also a big difference between liking and loving. You can definitely love someone and not like them. You can also definitely like someone and not love them. But
Hmm.
I think
Sure.
it's much worse to love someone and not necessarily like them.
Totally, totally. And when you are, those things like you said, the difference between arguing and fighting, and I think talking to your partner like that, talking down to your partner, being condescending, lack of respect, swearing at them, to me that falls into the fighting category because those are attacks.
Right.
Even though you may not feel like, oh, just because I'm ridiculing my partner, I'm not attacking them, but you
Right.
are. That's
Well,
being condescending in any form is an attack.
and maybe people think that arguing is an aggressive sort of mindset, an offensive mindset. And sure, maybe it is. You want to prove your point, but attack with facts. Don't attack with just verbal assaults because I don't need to call someone a bad name or sink to childish sort of antics if what I am arguing is correct and right. You know what I mean? Like if I
Yeah.
feel if I feel that I have a virtuous sort of mindset in what I'm arguing for, then I don't need to be a bully. I don't need to be mean.
Right, right. And really your delivery, I think it doesn't even need to be. You could take attack right out of that. If you have facts, and depending on what the context is, if you've got things to support your point of view or whatever you're trying to get across, then it's something that you present. And when you present something, that's in a way that is thoughtful and respectful, it's not an attack. But the presentation, we can go either way. And I think when you present anything or put forth something in the form of an attack, then naturally the person on the receiving end is going to be defensive.
Right.
And that means there's usually going to be a counterattack. Now you're moving back into the ring, right?
Right.
And you don't want to go there. Now that is a perfect lead into the next point, which is don't avoid the argument. So if there's something that's up for you that's really bugging you, um, whatever it is, whether it's your partner's habit of constantly leaving, toothpaste all over the bathroom sink. It could be something like, as simple as that, or it could be something bigger, like, you leave the car on empty every single time. And I ran out of, gas with Junior in the back on my way to daycare, whatever it is. You can't avoid it. You got to bring it up, but you can choose to bring up the stuff that's really bugging you in a calm and constructive way, that's going to lead to a better outcome rather than, unleashing on the other person because you've let something build up for so long. You've been avoiding it and you let it build up, and then it comes out, in maybe a really opportune place, like in public or in front of other people, at a party or after you've had a few cocktails. I mean, don't avoid it when stuff comes up. If it's becoming something that is bugging you, don't just let it sit in there and simmer and percolate so that you explode at a really opportune time and in a really bad way. You gotta, I think, have the confidence and maybe the courage to bring something up, present it, and say, you know what? How do we come to some sort of a solution that we can both be okay with about this situation, right? It's got to be constructive.
I agree. 100%. I mean, really
Yeah.
not much more to say there. I think
Yeah.
it's funny what you're saying maybe is enlightening to people, but when you really also think about it, it's common sense. It's relationship common sense in so many ways.
Yeah, but it's amazing how that's why again, I go back to you have to combine your head and your heart because the common sense part comes from your head. The emotional part comes from your heart. And you got to have both. That's my take. I think it's really important that you have a heart and you come at things from a true desire to want to be understanding and empathetic and compassionate and thoughtful. All of those are, emotions that are heartfelt emotions. You have to really want to connect with your partner at, heart to heart. But you also have to come at this from a way that your head is involved, so that you are being mindful of how you are using your words, because emotions can get out of control. And if you're letting emotions run the show, and you let those run wild, and you're not putting any logic or mindful, thought into it, then you start to kind of lose control of yourself and the whole situation.
I agree with that.
Yeah, yeah. So here's I think an interesting one too, that a lot of people are guilty of: stating their opinion as a fact. So that's really tricky, and I think that, let's see, what's an example? Let's say you think your partner is being disrespectful. Let's say that you feel like, going back to an earlier point, that you feel that they are speaking to you in a really disrespectful way. You could state it as a fact, which is, you talk to me like shit and you treat me like crap and you're speaking to me very disrespectfully, which may actually be the case. But if you state it as an opinion instead, like, wow, I really felt disrespected and it hurt my feelings when you said this in this way to me, it's going to be received in a totally different way. Because when you say it's a fact, here's what you did, again, you automatically put that person on the defense, and usually their knee-jerk reaction is to want to defend their action, to defend their words. And so you're back into attack and defend mode. Whereas if you instead make your point from the place of, well, here's how you made me feel, here's it's an opinion based. I felt like this because of this, and the way you said or did whatever. And I would just really like to talk about how in the future, if this comes up, we can approach this differently so that we each feel better, whatever it is. You get the difference between fact and opinion.
100%. And even if it feels like it's fact to you, it still may just be your opinion, or it's your perception of an opinion that makes it fact. That is the issue. Do you know what I mean? And I think a lot of people, I think more often than not, we can almost deal with other people's issues better than we can deal with our own sometimes, because we can take some of that emotion out of it. And when people are, arguing or fighting with their partner, they're seeing it through a certain, lens. And if you're able to separate yourself from that emotion, sometimes you'll find out that facts really aren't facts, and they're just your perception or opinion of something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and a lot of times I think what happens a lot is people take things personally, that really it wasn't the intention of your partner to make it personal. It was just the way that they, said something, or the way they do things. And they're just, it doesn't mean that make it right what they said or did, but it wasn't their intention, but you took it personally, you made it about you, and now now you have an issue. So again, being able to say, rather, this is what's going on, this is what you're doing, fact, 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 this is, when you start out anything with this is, you are, you're stating something from a very factual, position. So again, you just keep landing back in the ring, back in attack and defense mode. Okay, and back to that, don't do it in public.
Oh my
That's
God, that's the biggest thing. Yes.
Right.
I mean, I don't know how many times I've come across this, but my wife and I'll be out on a date night or at dinner somewhere, even with our son, and the couple next to us in a booth at a restaurant, they're just having a full on argument, like full on, like heated, passionate argument. And it's like, come on, guys, like you're now ruining other people's nights out because you can't sort of contain the situation.
Yeah. I mean, everybody around you is uncomfortable.
Right.
And sometimes, and sometimes you've, maybe been around a couple where you can tell that maybe they were, arguing or having a fight right before they got there, and they're trying to just be civil, but the energy is still permeating the air, and there's still the little sarcastic
Oh
barbs that are
yeah.
going back and forth. And again, maybe they're not actually having the verbal all out in front of you,
Right.
but
Oh, passive
they
aggression.
mentally and emotionally are, and everybody can feel it.
Right. Like
And uh,
passive aggression is like the most sort of not subtle jab in the world when people are throwing jabs with that sort of passive aggressive style. Like I would rather people just start screaming at each other, to be honest with you, because it builds such a tension in the air that's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's a tricky one to deal with, I think, too, for people. It's just it's what's the word? It's very manipulative,
Oh yeah.
passive
Very.
aggressiveness. It's
Yeah.
very manipulative. That's like a whole show in itself. That's a tricky one. But yeah, it's when people are taking their fighting into any type of public situation, it's just creating awkward and discomfort for everybody within earshot or in the room, because the energy is just going out everywhere, and you'd be really better off to just pass.
Yeah, I mean,
Just don't
I
go.
hate to say it, but I feel it's the same way. It's PDA, public display of affection and public display of aggression. Neither
Yeah,
need to be out in public. It's uncomfortable.
yeah, I agree. All right, next point. um so you're having your argument, and one partner is doing something like avoiding eye contact, looking at the ceiling, rolling their eyes, right? Looking away. So basically, even though you're present and you're maybe having the discussion and you say, like, I'm listening, but you're actually being super dismissive because you've got these antics going around of eye rolling and have exasperated sighs. And so basically you're being completely disrespectful and minimizing everything that your partner is saying just by your body language. It's rude.
I
It's
agree.
rude.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah. So show some respect to your partner. Make eye contact as they speak. Don't be rude. Don't be rude. And along with that, like, yeah, don't shake your head. Don't shake your head. No, it shuts down the communication. And when you're not willing to try to be understanding and listen to your partner, and at least show a little bit of willingness to hear them, it's just arrogant. It's really arrogant. It's stubborn, which is very immature. And you don't have to agree, but you really have to try to show that you understand where they're coming from. And you're doing the opposite of that when you're eye rolling and exasperated sighs and shaking your head, and all of that is saying something else. I think also that, oh, don't let me forget this one before I move on. Body language. Folding your arms. You know how when you fold your arms, it's like a classic defensive. I'm not budging. It's
Right.
kind of like,
Yep.
you know what I mean?
It's yeah. I mean, you speak just as loud with your physical demeanor as you
Yeah.
do with your words.
Yeah. Waving your finger in the other person's face, folding your arms, all of that stuff.
My
Frowning, making
the
faces.
hardest one for me to stomach, and I hope my wife's not listening. I can't handle when she rolls her eyes at me. Lori, when she rolls her eyes at me, I'd rather her just push me down a flight of stairs. Okay, I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but yeah, no,
Uh-huh.
it lands with just the same sort of intention. Like when my wife rolls her eyes at me, it's like, okay, you're not taking me seriously at all, and it drives me crazy.
Right. Right. And you want to be taken seriously by your partner. You deserve to. my biggest thing, but this is a joke. We actually make this laugh. We've been together a long time, and so my thing is, we try to turn everything, humorous. And so my thing is, when Eric says something that I'm like, if I don't agree or I think I've definitely got a different perspective, I just look at him and I just raise one eyebrow. And he laughs. He knows it's like our signal, like, we probably need to talk about this,
Right.
or this is just too funny to even actually go any further.
Well, it's sort of like humor kind of fixes everything. In the most tense moments,
Everything.
you have to be able to laugh a little bit. I mean, talk to any combat veteran. They talk about how, some of the scariest things are going on around them in a war zone, and they're cracking on one another. They're making jokes. Why? Because it's the only way to sort of alleviate the pressure of some of life's most difficult sort of emotions and feelings.
Yeah. It diffuses those really intense, scary, or negative, or whatever. It's like a diffusion. It's just it's miraculous. Humor works miracles, and will take you far if you are able to use it constructively and playfully in your relationship, especially when you're having an argument.
Yep.
For sure. It is the best fix ever, I think. So yeah, we have a lot of that. We laugh a lot. It's good. Okay. Next point. Don't concentrate only on their words. So you're hearing words, but sometimes we don't all have the gift of communicating that well. Sometimes, your partner's trying to tell you something, but they're just not that great.
Oh.
They're just not that great at coming up with the right words at the right time in the right way. So you really, cut up a break. If you really know and love this person or want to know them, then you really have to shift sometimes from the words that they're saying and put your focus on their heart.
I'm so guilty of this, Loree. Like, I'm very much guilty of giving my wife a hard time if she says something she doesn't mean. Like if she says, "Hey, can you grab the glasses to start the car?" I know she means keys. I know this, right? But I'll be like,
yeah.
Why would you want glasses for the car? She's like, "That's not what I meant." Like, I know that. I know. But like, for whatever reason, like I take everything so literally. Like I'm just a literal person. And like, I bring things up like that I shouldn't bring up, especially when we're having an argument. It's bad.
Yes.
It's probably my biggest flaw as a person in a relationship.
So are you really thinking she's asking for glasses, or is this are you just being sarcastic?
I'm being sarcastic. Yeah. You're
being sarcastic.
Yeah, it's bad.
Yeah. So that's different, right, than taking everything literally. You're taking the literal delivery, but you're responding with sarcasm because that that's not what she was asking for.
You know what? Right? I brought this to your attention. You're just repeating the words that I said, and I still feel like shame and anger with myself because like it's a problem. It's definitely one of my biggest faults, and I got to get better at it.
Well, I mean, again, just what we just said. Bring humor into it. And does she know that you're just being sarcastic?
Oh,
Can she just laugh about it?
No, she it's been 14 years, Loree. The laughter's gone from that part of our relationship. She's just annoyed, and she should be. So,
Okay. She does not appreciate the sarcasm.
No, nor should she really. It's not helpful. Okay.
All right. Well, now you have something to chew on, and we'll see how things go next time we talk about that, huh?
We gotta always figure out something to work on in our lives.
Yeah, we do. There's always more to work on. So getting super hung up on the exact words that your spouse is using can, unless you know what their point is. But if you don't know, if you're not really trying to focus on their heart, you're just missing the whole point. So that's good for people to be aware of that. not everybody is a gifted communicator. So cut your partner some slack.
Oh yeah, that's another thing that she always gets on me for too. If I don't use my words correctly, she will like to point out that I speak for a living. So,
Okay.
and I'm like,
Yeah.
give and take, give and
Yeah.
take. We both have our faults.
Well, we all do. I mean, we all have our stuff. It's just no matter how many bumps in the road you navigate well, and okay, we've got that dialed in. We've found a solution or a way to communicate about that. Still other things will come up, or it may show up in a new way, and you've got to figure out. You got to get busy and find a new way to approach it. So it's good for us. It's always stretching us to grow. It's good. Okay, so let's, if you're going to be arguing, make sure that it's worth it, right? Make sure that this is something worth arguing about, or is this something that is really so stupid? Like in a few months or years, is anybody going to care at all about what the topic is that you're arguing about right now? So I think, choosing the battle, so to speak, choosing the argument wisely, I think a lot of people spend way too much time arguing over things, wasting time on it and energy, things that are so insignificant that you'd be so much better off directing your focus and attention and your communication on something productive, because I think there's a lot of wasted resources going to arguing over just really stupid shit.
100%.
So, yeah,
argue about things that are worth arguing over. Like that will make you can have a conversation about and will move on and be better for.
Yeah. And then if it's a topic worth arguing about, make sure that it's that you make it worth it at the end of the day by getting some problem solving done, right? So if there's something that's up for the each of you or one of you that's got to be sorted through, it doesn't really, what's the point if you're like, well, all right, I hear you, you hear me, but there's no real resolution or any problem solving. So depending on what it is, it's like, which side of the driveway should the trash can go on? That's not really it's not really something you should spend a lot of time on, but you probably want to find a solution to it. Pick a spot so you both agree and move on. But some things just never get resolved, and then the argument keeps showing up. So figure it out, whatever it is, find a solution, and then move on from it. And stay on topic. I think that is something also that happens, is especially if one or both partners has a tendency to stuff down, and they wait until they're about to burst. And then something else comes up and it's like a trigger. So whatever sort of triggered it all of a sudden becomes more of just an opening for all this other stuff. So you get off topic, but you get, into the deep end of the pool, and there's a bunch of other stuff that you've been, let percolating. So I think that staying on topic and making sure that you're not veering off and another thing, your mother-in-law, and another thing, there's your late hours. I mean, it's just, you could find a whole bunch of stuff, and then it's very hard to get into a place of looking for peace and harmony and a solution when all of a sudden you got this whole mixed bag of tricks that you just threw out on the table.
100%.
Yeah. All right. So I think part of having your difference of opinion, your arguing, is how to learn the art of listening, because that's a huge part of the problem when people have something that they need to bring up that's uncomfortable. it's one thing to be able to articulate what's up for you. So we've talked a lot about that. But the other half of the equation is, can you listen to your partner? How are you able to receive and respond to the information? So I think that demonstrating that you are willing to sit and listen and really hear your partner is super important. I mean, we've all probably been there where you're talking to somebody about something that's, even if it's not important, you're just trying to have a conversation, and somebody's like preoccupied. They're not making eye contact. They're looking around. They're distracted by what else is going on in the room or the environment, or they're looking at their phone, or, they're mentally somewhere else. You can tell, even if they're looking at you, but they're not really seeing you, you can feel it. So staying focused and clear of distractions when you are having a conversation or an argument of any, level with somebody is really, really important. Don't be roaming around mentally somewhere else. It's very disrespectful, and you're not going to get much accomplished. So maintain eye contact, clear your mind, concentrate on your partner's words. It's really about being an active listener. You want to be intentionally listening, right? Most people are talking too much and they're not listening enough. And that's just kind of like across the board about everything. A lot of people are just doing way too much of the talking. They're not listening enough, and they're not really listening with the goal of understanding. They're not listening with the goal of being empathetic. They're listening just for waiting for an opportunity to reply or to say their piece, to get their 2 cents in. So the goal becomes more about being heard rather than hearing. Make sense?
Oh yeah, and I mean the best way to prove your point is by absorbing someone else's point of view and then logically explaining to them why they are maybe misguided and why you feel the way that you do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to be you have to just use, really it's about manners. When you think about it, all of this advice, all of these tips and everything, really you could boil it down to just have some freaking manners. Just be kind, be patient, listen to the other person, try to see things from their perspective. You don't have to agree. Share your thoughts and opinions about it. Come to a solution if that's what the nature of the topic is, that you need to find a solution. But a lot of that, it just comes down to manners, which is, something that, again, is becoming a lost art, I think, especially with social media, because you can get away with stuff with nobody holding your feet to the fire. But I think that staying on topic and being an intentional listener, an active listener, and responding in ways that show your partner, the person that you are listening, you're making eye contact. Maybe if this is your significant other, if this is somebody that you're in a relationship with, even being able to reach out and touch that person on the arm or touch them on the hand or the shoulder, that is a really meaningful way that communicates to your partner, even if you guys are at different, ends of the spectrum on whatever the topic is, but it still communicates to your partner that, you're sympathetic or you're empathetic. And you're affirming that, hey, even though we might not have the same point of view on this, it's, I still, we're still connected heart to heart. So that's another form of body language that you can use to keep things in the right place rather than putting distance between you. Nodding your head when the person is talking is an effective way that tells that person, yes, I'm hearing you and I understand what you're saying. I'm listening to you. that's important. And it's, again, this is all body language, eye contact, nodding your head, maybe touching them, and just letting them know, I hear you. I do hear you. Another thing that you can do is repeating back to your partner what you thought you just heard them say. Because, boy, it is really interesting how you can say something and then your partner can repeat it back to you, and it's not what you just said. They heard something different than the words you just delivered. So that's a really interesting thing to come back and when you're in the heat of it or in the thick of it, and say, wait, I want to make sure that I understand what you just said. Because a lot of times what you just heard is not what they intended for you to hear.
You know that old game of telephone when you were a kid? Like, you would sit in a circle with your classmates and you'd say something, and by the time it made it all the way back to you, it was something completely different.
Yes.
Like, I feel like we play that same game with ourselves and with our partner, but it's not necessarily the words that get messed up. It's the interpretation.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Because certain words evoke certain emotions in people. So the emotion changes the context for them a lot of times. So it's really important when you repeat back and say, I think this is what you said. I just want to make sure. And that gives them a chance to say, okay, that's not what I meant, or here's the intention behind what I said. And I don't want you to misunderstand what I meant, so that you can clarify your meaning, so that everybody knows that, what you just said, you have the same meaning, and you're operating from the same space. It shows that you heard more than their words. It shows that you understand and you felt their heart. So again, you are fostering that heart-to-heart connection. And then really at the end, wrapping things up to make sure that everybody is feeling like, okay, we got through this, and maybe it was uncomfortable, but we got through it and we feel like we're in a good place. And then it's always great to say, all right, is there anything I can help with? How can I help you? What do we need to do moving forward to make sure that we, get this task done, or that we make sure that we stay in this place of understanding? So offering to support each other moving forward is a really great way to sort of put a cap on things. Make sense?
100%.
Mm-hmm. So I think that those are some really, really great things for people to work on or to keep in mind when you are finding yourself in a place of verbal conflict, whether you want to call it difference of opinion, different perspectives, or arguing. Basically, all of those tips will help you finesse that and get through those what can be very uncomfortable places in a way that is productive, rather than a way that escalates it to a fight. And now you're in a boxing match, and everybody is going to lose ultimately. So once again, this was awesome. Thank you for hanging out and diving into this stuff with me today, TJ. I love having you on here doing this.
No,
great.
It's fun for me. And like I said, I think we all sort of know this stuff, but unless it's articulated or unless we sort of think about it, we have it, but it's like useless information because we can't acknowledge it. We don't know we know it until we know it, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yep, totally. All right, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with us today. I hope this conversation has left you feeling inspired and perhaps has given you some new tools for how to have more harmonious conversations with your partner when you don't always see eye to eye on things. It's never, ever too late to try new approaches that can help us get unstuck from old, unproductive ways of communicating with our partner. If you know somebody that needs to hear this, don't be shy. Share the link with them. Help them out. Subscribe to the We're Talking Shift podcast if you haven't already, so that you'll always be notified when a new episode drops. And hey, you know what? Do me a favor. And if you find value in what you heard and you think others might too, it would make me smile and feel like all warm and fuzzy if you would just take 2 quick seconds to show me the love and give me a rating. That would be awesome. If you're trying to make some shift happen in your life, or your relationship and think that some guidance could help you find out what private coaching with me is all about, just check out LoreeBischoff.com or We'reTalkingShift.com, any of the social media platforms, and you will find me there. Thanks for listening, everybody. I will talk to you next week. Stay feisty, my friends, and go make some shift happen. You too, Gary V.
The preceding podcast was a TJ DeSantis production. Comments, questions, and inquiries can be directed to DeSantisProd@gmail.com.